Welcome to Wise Chat. It's Wednesday, May 15th, 2024, and you're joining us for Wisecrack Live. Go ahead, take a seat, lick the stem, get comfy and wait. Mike will be with us in just a moment. Producer Henry here saying thanks for being with us. I'm always saying boo earns. Oh, sorry to hear that, 0 gram ham. Hello, Robert. Hello, Beatmaster. Good morning, Mr. Navidad.
I don't know what that was, but good morning, good afternoon, good night, wherever you are in the world. I always love a geographic, roll call. So if you want to let us know where you are in the world in the chat, that'd be awesome. Do it with words, do it with a flag emoji, whatever you feel like. We are here in Culver City, California. It's Wisecrack Live on May 15th. I don't know. This is a very cliche thing to say, but every year feels like, you get to like May and I think to myself, wasn't it just January? Didn't the year just start? How are we this deep into 2024? I mean, part of that too is, we started the year at Wisecrack like we do a lot of years. Like, we're going to do this year. We have this new plan and we're going to do things this way. And then you get halfway through the year and you're like, yeah, we've done very little of that. But hey, we're all trying our best. John's over in San Gabriel near good food. We're in Brooklyn. We're in Florida. We're in Canada. We're in Texas, Taipei, Taiwan, Ohio. The kid is coming from Israel. Is that another Taiwan or the same Taiwan? Indiana. Love Indiana. Oklahoma. I've never been, but a lot of cool stuff about Oklahoma. Switzerland. Heard of it. Lots of official languages in Switzerland. Beatmaster can correct or edit this. But what you got Italian, you got German, you got French, we got Mexico City, Western New York, another Indiana, Birmingham, Alabama, Colorado, Detroit getting dirty for the D.
Pittsburgh.
Yeah, thank you everyone. New York City, Chicago, Brooklyn waiting for halal food. That sounds rad. Pittsburgh. Oh, Clownicus, who we love, regular, in Pittsburgh, as is Chris Maverick. Our boy John in Milwaukee doing pretty good. Idaho, Calgary, Lisboa. Someone said Mars, I think. Scotland. Where in Scotland? I used to live in Dundee, Scotland. Wynwood, Idaho. Toledo, Ohio. Aberdeen. Oh, so they already said that. Is that a different Scotland? Yeah, Aberdeen. I've been to Aberdeen before. A very gray city. Isn't there some nickname for Aberdeen? Charleston, South Carolina, great town. NOLA, but a greater town. I mean, we got a big Pittsburgh contingent. Santa Cruz, great place. Chattanooga. Chew. Chattanooga. Kitty, you went to Dundee? That's where I did my PhD. I lived in Dundee for 4 years. I taught there a little bit as well. That's amazing. Kitty, it's fucking amazing. I love it. Like the stream if you're here. Swiss language Romana? I didn't know that was real. Tennessee again. I love it. I love a geographic check-in. Madison, Wisconsin. That's where people might think this is a joke. I really want to live in Madison, Wisconsin. It's kind of my dream. Kind of my dream to live in Madison. So many things about it seem so great. As we get going, a thing I want to start doing, selfishly, I guess, because I think it would be fun, is doing some advice. So if you want advice, you can write us at wisecracklive666 at gmail.com. You can jump on our Discord. If you're one of our Discord friends, you can go into the Wisecrack Live room on Discord. I just checked it out right now. If you want to be on Discord, we have a Patreon. You can sign up there. You can I actually put a call for advice as well on my Instagram today. So if you want to jump on there, my Instagram is Michael_O_Burns. I don't think anything's come in thus far. I'll keep checking to see if anyone. Oh, did I do something wrong in my pitch for work? No, I'm gonna respond to that in a second. But let us know. We'd like to help. There's some things we could probably actually help on. Some things that we realistically cannot, but it'd be fun to try. It'd be fun to try. We got some questions coming on Twitter as well. Follow us on Twitter if you don't. We do that there. But great to see where everyone is. Let's see. Great liberal animators from Jacksonville. Jacksonville is an underrated Florida city. Someone said, what happened to your plan for radio show style audio recordings? We might still do that as well. We have a number set up. It's just a matter of getting that going. So there you go. But excited to be here. Hi to everyone that checked us out on Monday. We had a fun stream on Monday talking about Sam Altman from OpenAI, some of the comments he made where he sort of invented philosophy. You got some interesting comments about that one, some solid feedback, I would say. Thanks again, everyone who watched the protest video on Friday. Special shout out to everyone who watched 3 seconds of that video and said, I didn't know Wisecrack was anti-Semitic now. We're not. I don't think we are. There's I'm not going to get into this too much, but there's a huge inherent irony in calling our creative team anti-Semitic, and we'll leave it at that. But definitely excited for everyone who's stealing time from work right now. We're going to talk about, I have a typo in the title for the stream. I'm going to go change that right now. I caught it.
Is the date wrong? Because I have caught that one before.
No, it's not that. Let's see. No, it's my bad. It was me. It was not you. It was very much a me problem. So don't worry. No one's calling Henry out. Henry can do no wrong. I'm sure you can do wrong. Henry, have you ever been arrested?
No.
All right. If you're comfortable talking about this in the chat, I would love to hear if anyone's been arrested before, and if you can discuss the terms of that.
I've been held over for a very long time, but it did not lead to arrest.
Yeah. Jake says, any update on the return of Show Me the Meaning? It's going really slow, but it's still progressing. It's still ideally happening. I think one thing that might help us do that is that we're launching on Spotify this week, thanks to Henry, of course. So once that happens, for all our Spotify users out there, we'll shoot you a link. Definitely subscribe to us over there. We'll be doing some very fun stuff, and hopefully we'll do that. Liberal animator arrested for protesting George Floyd. Zach arrested 3 times. Been detained. Arrested, not cuffed. Trespassing, saluting, trespassing, and speculating a street race. That's sick. We're not trying to promote it. We're not trying to say that it's like good to do crime. But it's just fun to hear about this sort of stuff, It's just fun to hear this sort of stuff from y'all. Okay. It's only illegal if you get caught, says Fun GPT. Like the stream if you're here. Let's look at some comments. Are these comments from the stream on Monday?
Yeah, comments are from Monday stream.
Great. And as always, if you miss a stream and you're bored, you can always go back and check it. We have them all listed on our page under live. So Steve Smith says to a question at 4444. Remember how Columbus discovered America? I do remember that. A continent that already had people living on it, that's debatable. Same thing, I suppose. Let's call this phenomenon Columbusing. Sam Altman Columbus the mind. So if you didn't see Monday's stream, one of the things we talked about was the way in which Sam Altman, and I think a lot of people in the tech space, have a tendency to, quote unquote, discover ideas from the humanities as if they are inventing them themselves. And I think this is because a lot of people in STEM or people that are trained in tech and business lack a humanities education. And to be fair, a lot of people in the humanities lack a proper scientific education. So it goes both ways. But in this particular instance, we were wondering, what is the term that can be used for what happens when someone in that space describes some innovation or some epiphany they had that's really just describing anything that already exists. In this case, it was Sam Altman describing the emergence of consciousness from matter in a way that philosophers have talked about for a very long time. So Columbusing, I like that. It's good. I'm going on 2 weeks now for having remnants of this cold. It's not fun. This one says Sam Altman's discovery of this philosophical concept is an example of the Dunning-Kruger effect. Henry, do you know what the Dunning-Kruger effect is?
Yeah, it's when you don't know, like, because you don't know what you don't know, you overestimate how much you do know. It's when you speak with expertise but you don't know anything, or you're more likely to speak with confidence on something. It's when you're speaking with confidence on something you know nothing about, basically.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll say this because I don't think she's ever watched a stream. My wife does this sometimes. She'll say like, you know what I realized? And she'll describe a thing. And then I'm like, oh, Callie, you're describing a thing that this thinker said. And then her takeaway is normally, well, see, I don't even need that thinker because I got there on my own. And it's like, wow, to have that confidence. I do not. It says other terms to describe this action are naive reinvention. I like that. Uninformed proclamation. Egocentric misattribution. It's a good one as well. Go Power Ranger said, I'd be interested in a philosophical look at modern fraternities and the Lord of the Flies mentality they have. JP Staples, Brock Turner. Why are they still around, and do they even offer any real benefits? I never lived on a college campus, so I don't have the insight that Michael might. Fraternities are interesting because I'll say something not controversial, but maybe counterintuitive. There's something about the idea of a fraternity or a sorority that I actually think is good. And before you get mad at me, here's what I think is good about it. The idea that people at that stage of their life live together in a communal way, have some sort of shared values or commitments, make meals together, eat together, study together. That's cool. I mean, in a sense, it's what I'm describing as a form of commune or artist residency or something like that. So the structure itself of these things, I think, are interesting, and potentially I think they're even good. If you look at, some of the universities in Europe and the UK, you have residential colleges where, so if you go to like Oxford or Cambridge, some of the Brits in the chat might know more about this. You don't just go to Oxford, you go to like blank college at Oxford. So you're a part of a specific faculty. You live in a particular place. You have specific tutors. You have a Hogwarts-esque dining hall. I think that's all really cool. However, it sounds like what's happened in modern fraternity culture, and I'm sure there's massive exceptions to this because I'm sure we only hear about the worst of them, but they've become spaces for, I guess, for lack of a better term, for like the embrace of a externalized and sometimes aggressive misogyny or something like that. I don't know, Henry, do you have any experience with fraternities or fraternity culture?
No, I went remote. Like, I didn't live on campus, but also
Yeah.
just fraternity presence on campus where I went seemed very, very slim. Like,
Yeah.
they interacted with like student government, but they weren't like a huge like visible presence on campus as far as like the cultural stuff goes.
Yeah, and I know that there's instances of fraternities that are more for lack of a better term, normal slash nerdy dudes who aren't being incredibly sus. The same thing for sororities. And I know especially at a lot of smaller colleges, it's like that.
Yeah,
My freshman year, go ahead.
I will say that like it was from what I did see of the Greek life where I went, it was very like small and very like it didn't look stereotypical, is how I
Hmm.
would put it. They seemed surprisingly kind of just like normal. Is
Yeah.
the best way I put it. Like it didn't look like a college movie. They didn't even seem like party animals. It just seemed like a preppy kind of, you know, collective social, like, hey, we get together and do these things.
Yeah. I mean, and think about it this way, if one was going to college and taking the residential route, would you rather live in a tiny cell blocky dorm with one person you're assigned to, or potentially live in a bigger house with a bunch of people that you have some sort of shared interest with,
Yeah.
and maybe you have a porch or a yard? That sounds more fun to me.
That's
Um,
generally been my 20s and I guess now my 30s here in Austin is just like
yeah.
shared communal living with like production people.
Yeah. I don't know. It's kind of fun. I haven't had roommates. I mean, I have roommates, but they're people that I'm legally bound to, so it's not as much fun. But yeah, I'll be curious. I'm not looking at the chat right now. I'll be curious what people think. Lonkin Pork, friend of the program, said, as a STEM major that habitually badmouthed the humanities until my mid-20s, I think the commodification of higher education and being just a means to an end of getting a jorb has exacerbated the haughty arrogance of people with degrees in STEM fields. I've heard the most unreal, asinine socio-political opinions come from people I previously held a great deal of respect for within the scope of my chosen field. Brilliant technical minds that turn their noses up any scholarship they consider beneath them, and it's extremely disconcerting. Yeah, and this is a thing you see sometimes, especially in STEM fields, especially with tech people, especially with Silicon Valley tech people. There's a group of Silicon Valley guys that are trying to buy an entire town, or no, not town, city in Northern California to create their own, utopia. These are people that have no formal training in, sociology or urban planning or political philosophy, who haven't thought about these things, who think that they have the ability to straight up create a town. Um, so, okay, cool. People are offering some takes on fraternities and things like that, in which they're, you know, not as sketchy or potentially positive. So and I do think someone brought this up. The hazing thing is bad. We don't like that. Uh, Hazing is never good. I don't think it's ever good. I've never seen good hazing. So there you go. Like the stream if you haven't already. Um, okay, here we go. What are we going to talk about? So I want to look at something. Where's the doc right here? 1 second. Let's start as a fun thing. For a fun thing, let's look. Oh, should we do a watch together for the Bill Burr thing? Here, I'll set that up real quick. Let's see.
Bill Burr went
So
on Bill
maybe
Maher, friends.
yeah. So Bill Burr went on Bill Maher, Bill, and I would say it was surprising. I'd say Bill Burr is I've heard people phrase this different ways, but Bill Burr is like sort of, I don't want to say he's a dumb guy's version of a smart guy because I don't think he's necessarily dumb. But the way I think of Bill Burr these days is as someone that clearly is older, that came up in the stand-up world, where I think there is a lot of rampant, you know, misogyny, shittiness, stuff like that. But he seems like someone who has remained open-minded in his adult life, and via that open-mindedness and curiosity has come not via sort of ideological commitment, but just by being open to thinking, sometimes arrives at positions that are just kind of good, you know? And this is an
You're
interesting
one of
instance
my
of that. Now,
elders,
Bill
man. I
Maher is
respect.
someone who I don't know what everyone else thinks about Bill Maher. I would say that I think, personally, this is just me speaking, is a big dumb idiot. That's what I would say about Bill Maher. That he's a big dumb idiot. I think that maybe back in the day there was something interesting about his show, but I think, Bill Maher as political commentator is really, really boring. There's also the famous instance where Ben Affleck absolutely owned him, which was fun. But yeah, so I think the Burr thing is interesting. I had one interaction with Bill Burr once, and I'll say my one interaction with him, he was very nice and normal. There's people that are maybe at his level of fame that if you encountered in the world, they wouldn't be very nice and normal. They'd maybe be pricks. And he was very nice and normal. He's also a member of the Raw Dome family, so I really respect that about him as well. So let's watch this clip. And
Wow, didn't know that. Holy shit. I'm grateful for Bill Maher because I saw Religulous as a teen, and I was like, despite having these same kind of conclusions as far as atheism goes, I don't agree with this guy's methodology or practice of it. And it got me realizing, like, yeah, it's not. Uh-oh. Oh, it's your audio. Just a moment.
hello. Okay,
Apologies for that, chat.
sorry. So yeah, I got silenced by Henry there. Sorry for that, guys. I'm hopefully back now. Let us know if you hear me. So we're gonna watch this Bill Burr clip. So it says Bill Burr manhandles Bill Maher, but no, it's not really a manhandle. It's just Bill Burr says some stuff, or Bill Maher does, and Bill Burr responds in a logical way. And I think that Bill Burr is just a good example of like a lot of positions that one might see as potentially progressive or left or woke. Some of this is just like kind of logical, and you can arrive at these positions without being, I don't know, too online or too ideological. So let's watch this. We'll probably stop a few times.
My elders, man, I respect you for that. You dress like you paint. Look at you. You just hate kids. I don't like how you just made that point and then said anyway really quickly before I could refute it. Anyway, did you learn that in debating class? One of the best things you did for
I realize this was a super cut. This is great.
society is you didn't have kids. Jesus Christ, was that Geritol? Look at you trying to beat a drinking and driving charge. Bill Maher reading the New York Times, driving around fucking leopard print shoes. You know, it was like a PED for your fucking point.
Your wife.
It's a little more pronounced. Because you're such a victim right now with all your libtard friends.
Yeah,
You go again with the big words. Everything that you would look down your fucking nose.
Your kid.
Don't you save that for your parties when you're wearing your smoking jacket? I'll tell you, that Bill Maher is really smart. He is really well-read. He just said prima paravardi. You're not a knock-around guy. You looked up Latin words and you didn't fucking hang out with the fellas and they used to hang you by your underwear at the lockers. So now none of them are funny because this is your one thing. But I'm funny. They could never be as funny.
It's so weird that he's just kind of roasting him and Bill Maher just laughs. I wonder, there's truth in comedy, as some might say. Yeah, I wonder if this will have the full clip of the thing he says about student protesters. But it's kind of fun.
Is me.
Well,
like there's so much shit about you that's funny that you're not even trying to be funny. Your whole fucking outfit is hilarious. You dress like that, like you're gonna sing that. What is that song? Splish splash. I was taking a bath with your stupid little slippers that you're wearing. All right, relax, you fucking historian. Go ahead, throw another Latin word at me.
that
Do you ever think that you're older than the hula hoop?
that's the
Do you ever think you're older than the hula hoop? Oh my God.
Garrett. And then after that, did they move? Did they move to the garage and have put some basil on their fry up?
No.
That's an asshole thing to do. To use the English
I
word
know.
for fucking attic in California.
Okay, but
I'm
but-
one more reference away from taking this mic off and just walking out. I want to make a list of all the things I didn't know, and I'm just gonna fucking say them all to my wife tonight. She's like, "Who the fuck did you have? You on mushrooms? What are you talking?"
Oh,
The Garrett. You totally have the energy of you forgot to give out the homework assignment, Mrs. So and so. Fucking highbrow.
well, it's
Oh,
true.
does your shit jokes float above ours? Why? Because you say set me.
I mean, but that's the problem. The funny thing here is like that Bill Maher is someone who postures as very intelligent, and then someone like Bill Burr, who I think is probably more intelligent but postures as the everyman, is so good at undercutting him.
Tank or something. It sounds like you have a gig coming up in Boston and the tickets are a little slow.
No.
That's where Harvard is. For a guy like
I
you,
know that.
that's got to be the Taj Mahal. I love that
I
bugged
hate
you.
Harvard.
Solved
Attacking
it.
Israel.
You just
I did.
solved it.
I actually
there you
did.
go. That's fantastic.
Anyway,
All right,
we don't need to get
let's
onto
go
that.
Let's go to Russia and the Ukraine. How do you solve that one, Bill?
Not
It
your
isn't.
thing.
You're like that guy
Playing
that
the-
has a fantasy football team
No,
and thinks
no,
he's a
no,
fucking
no,
GM.
No.
It's like, why am I fucking listening to you like you've done something? What have you done in Washington? Nothing. The coolest fuck.
And I don't know if it's going to come up here, but at one point, Bill Maher was talking shit about protesting students. And then Bill Burr very casually is just like, I'm on the side of the kids in a way that felt very, non-aggressively political, but made a lot of good sense. We do have some questions coming in. So we're going to do question time on the stream. I'm very excited about it. So if anyone else has questions, please feel free to send them in at Wisecrack Live 666. If you're just tuning in, thanks for joining us. It's Wisecrack Live. Michael Burns here with Henry. We're just for fun watching Bill Burr roast Bill Maher for a few minutes because sometimes it's okay to feel good. Please like the stream if you're here.
Fucking guy in Washington. You showed up with those boots
it would be so
and no
easy.
tie. They'd be like, oh my God.
It'd be so easy to
Did
be.
Kevin Bacon just come back to that Footloose town? Bound. You fucking get off your little private jet. What was this? If I don't agree with you, I'm an idiot. Fucking John Varvatos shirt. You're not young. Put on a sweater for fuck's sake. You had a woman in your
but you're
life.
right,
She
it's
wouldn't let you go on camera like
It's
that.
almost like a bland,
Like your opinions. Yeah, exactly. Oh, a big word. Another big G word. Look at you. You memorizing that part of the fucking dictionary? I don't have kids. I got all day long. Fucking read the dictionary.
And it was.
Well, that's right.
It was
You figured
it
out the
was a
Middle East. I
giant
forgot.
hit. No, I think sort of artistically. They see it through
Can I
a
ask you
very.
a question?
And I don't think they're stupider. I just think they see life through a different prism.
Can I ask you a question?
We
When was
gotta
the last
go.
time,
Good night.
from the bottom of your heart, you said to another human being, you know what? I'm wrong. Oh, that's a big thing in your world, knowing architects' names. Oh, let me adjust my glasses. I don't think you could change the oil in a car. Can I tell you something, Bill? Most of the shit that you say is not smart. It's just sort of obscure. No, you're not that smart. You're my favorite smarmy person in this business.
Wow. Okay. That was fun. Fun to watch someone get roasted a little bit, especially someone who's kind of a cock. So there you go. And you can watch you can go look this up if you want to see it.
full
later. Someone said
podcast
no
is-
sound again?
I think that was someone on a delay. You're coming through pretty
Okay,
good now.
cool.
Yeah. Yeah, the full podcast is up on YouTube. You would be giving Bill Maher some attention, but yeah.
No, we don't want to do that. But that was fun. So let's see. Okay, we'll start with this. So again, you're sorry. Again, this is Wisecrack Live. It's May 15th. I'm Michael Burns. I'm here as always with producer Henry, and as always with the best chat and audience on the gosh darn internet. Our main topic today, or one of the things we want to get into, is recent news around streaming services bundling. Now, all of us know this history, right? We used to watch television on TVs that were plugged into little boxes. Some of those little boxes back in the day, at the right time of day, if you'd go to the right channel, you would see squirmy naked bodies. But, we paid for cable packages. That's how we got all our TV. Eventually, we got DVRs, we got satellites. But slowly, surely, streaming took over. So most of us now pay for a bunch of streaming services. I'd be curious if you, in the chat, if anyone knows how many streaming services you pay for. I'm trying to cut back. I'm embarrassed to do this live, But let's see. I think I pay for Netflix, Hulu, Amazon Prime, Criterion, Disney Plus, Apple TV,
Wow.
and then I use the library one, but that's free. And then YouTube, I don't premium. So a lot, right? And this week, a bunch of news came out about some of these streaming services combining into one big bundle. Now, some of this has already been happening for a while. There's been a Hulu, Disney Plus, ESPN bundle. And this all comes along with a bunch of news about, one could say, problems or even a full-scale collapse in the television and film industry. So let's look. There's a Variety article that describes the Disney and Max bundle, which is a big deal to have Disney and Warner Brothers Discovery teaming up, because this covers a lot of content. And of course, Disney also owns the rights to all the Hulu stuff, FX, ESPN, a whole buttload of stuff. So according to the Variety piece, Disney and Warner Brothers are teaming up for a triple play bundle of Disney Plus, Hulu, and Max. The company has announced a new streaming bundle comprising Disney Plus, Hulu, and Max will be available this summer in the US. There's no pricing info or specific launch date. It'll be available for purchase on any of the 3 streaming platforms' websites and offered as both an ad-supported and ad-free plan. The apps and content from each company will remain separate. Disney recently integrated Hulu content into Disney Plus for customers who have both services. Note that Hulu already has agreements to sell add-on subscriptions for Max and Paramount Global's Paramount Plus with Showtime. And yeah, I mean, if you go down a little bit, they're going to offer entertainment from ABC, CNN, DC, Discovery, Disney, Food Network, FX, HBO, HGTV, Hulu, Marvel, Pixar, Searchlight, and many more. They've also put together a new streaming sports bundle. So there you go. It says the streaming has fueled the steady erosion of the pay TV industry. The moves by otherwise competing media companies to partner up on streaming bundles looks like an attempt to reconstitute cable TV. And we should talk about this more later, because and there's a couple tweets we'll look at where some folks point out some flaws in this and we can discuss it. But a lot of the discussion with this immediately goes to, oh, they're just reinventing cable. It's just cable all over again. And there's a sense at which, on the surface, we can say that. But I think something different might be going on. We'll talk about it. It says, but both Disney and Warner Brothers have touted the benefits of bundles by boosting engagement and lowering churn, i.e. cancellation rates. The perk for consumers is typically a discounted price compared with paying for individual services separately. Let's see. Yeah, look at the last quote here. It says, Warner Brothers Discovery is J.B. Perrette, CEO and president of Global Streaming and Games. I bet that guy makes so much money. I bet he's making more money today than most of us will make in a year. Says this new offering delivers for consumers the greatest collection of entertainment for the best value in streaming and will help drive incremental subscribers and much stronger retention. Offering this unprecedented entertainment value for fans across all the complementary genres these services offer presents a powerful new roadmap for the future of the industry. And of course, what's said a few times here about churn and retention is, it seems like what they're really doing is trying to trick us into paying for services that we're probably not going to watch anyways, but we're going to keep them because we're not going to cancel because we want the other thing.
Yeah, are they just hoping they they put everything together and they charge less for it, but they retain more people overall? They just kind of hope there's enough money to juice out of the public at large with this method, I guess.
It seems like something like that is taking place. Yeah, I saw someone shouted out Canopy streaming. If you don't have Canopy, try to get it, guys, or look up what your local library has. And Sean Harriman bringing up some other big streaming news. No streams from Dead & Co. at the Sphere. John, I'm going tomorrow. I'm very excited. For those of you who don't know anything about this, yeah, tomorrow I'm going to Vegas. I've never been to Vegas before. And I'm going to see Dead & Company at the Sphere. I'm very excited. As I talked about on Monday, I've been moving for a week. It's been very, very stressful. So I'm excited to take 24 hours off to see some music and definitely not do any illegal drugs. As I'll tell you, one thing I won't be doing at those shows is taking any mind-altering substances. I stand against that. This stream and this show is brought to you by DARE, which
Yeah,
stands
you're
for
a dad.
drugs are really entertaining, but you still shouldn't do them. DARE stands for dads are ripped on ecstasy. Yes, that'd be a good shirt. Someone should make that a DARE shirt that just says dads are ripped on ecstasy, dads are railing ecstasy. Something like that. We have designers. So there's so that's not the only bundle that was announced. Okay. Not to be defeated, Comcast, our favorite company. Again, this stream is brought to you by Comcast. You can do it all with Comcast. Go to comcast.com/wisecrack for nothing. So this is in the Hollywood Reporter. It says Comcast unveils Peacock, Netflix, Apple TV streaming bundle. I said streaming bundle with a very weird affect there. I am curious which one sounds better to folks. If I'm honest, Hulu, Disney, Max to me probably sounds more attractive than Peacock, Netflix, Apple TV. That's just me. Okay, so it says Comcast CEO Brian Roberts has unveiled plans for Stream Saver. What a horrible name for a product. Stream Saver? Stream Saver sounds like a sort of plastic shield that comes up from your toilet when you stand up and piss in it if you pee with a penis, and it saves splashback.
Yeah, this is a 30 Rock gag.
Yeah. It's an upcoming streaming product bundle that packages Peacock, Netflix, and Apple TV. It'll be available to all Comcast broadband TV and mobile subscribers. So this one's a little different because it's Comcast specific. Shout out to all my Comcast users. Those three products will come at a vastly reduced price to anything in the market today. Will be available to all our customers. Let's see. So on Tuesday, Roberts talked up Stream Saver as an affordable streaming bundle that will underpin growth for his company's broadband business. So it seems like their pitch here, if the other streaming service seems to be pitched around lack of retention, shout out to anyone who has semen retention, this one is trying to get more people to pay for their broadband services. So it says, we've been bundling video successfully and creatively for 60 years. So this is the latest iteration of that. And I think it will be a pretty compelling package. It, of course, follows the Disney and Warner Brothers one. Peacock, the streaming service of Comcast's entertainment unit, NBC Universal, has narrowed its startup losses and ended the latest financial quarter with 34 million paying subscribers. Roberts told the investor conference that Peacock will continue with a steady as-you-go dual ad and subscription model. However much the wider streaming space is facing increased competition and drive towards profitability, we're playing our own hand, and I think we have a good roadmap. I mean, Henry, you brought up 30 Rock before, but so much of what's happening really does feel like extended 30 Rock bits. With Comcast becoming a company that just owns a little bit of everything, and there's like 2 or 3 companies.
Yeah,
own a little bit of everything.
That they're bundling it in with their what was it? Their broadband service.
Yeah,
that's how I get. So like, I only have one ISP I can choose from, which is AT&T in this area, which is why I have a Max subscription, and then like my phone carrier gave me a free Hulu subscription. It just speaks to how much fairy dust is in the economy for me, because like they're just looking for ways to like say they're squeezing dollars somewhere, and it's like you're giving me this stuff for free. I don't think any of this is real.
Yeah, and not that we do breaking news on this show, but I did just see a barge has hit a bridge in Galveston, Texas, partially collapsing a rail line and closing the only road to a small island. So boats and barges just hit bridges now. And I'll say this, I think this, in a sense, relates to what we're talking about, because I think it all gets back to that sort of enshittification of society in which everything seems like it's getting worse and worse, not better and better. Now, there's a couple of tweets I thought were good here from some people who I think are are good on this stuff. The first is from Daniel Bessner, who wrote that Harper's article that we talked about recently. And I think he makes an important point. Bessner says, it's just like cable, except without the entire business model of cable. Do better, entertainment press. Just because things are bundled together doesn't mean it's like cable. That's just misleading. And there is a point in which, it kind of feels like the entertainment press here is just doing PR and marketing for these companies. Another person, we have a tweet from this person I want to read in a second, a very smart, nice, funny guy, Brendan Gallagher, who's a TV writer, said, to your point, it's a revenue sharing agreement where smaller streamers take a diminished profit to be packaged with a more successful streamer. So it's likely an extremely fluid product where if you weren't in the cable package, you didn't exist. I mean, I think when we have to remember that cable was a thing, and the reason the cable model worked is because you or I, when we bought cable, I'm sure some of us still have cable, you pay for everything, even if you don't want everything. And channels that were on cable were making money from those subscriptions, even if you didn't watch them. So if you are someone who had cable and you loved the History Channel and Discovery Channel and Comedy Central and MSNBC and never watched sports, you were still giving money to ESPN. Of course, another side of cable is cable also had advertising. So these networks were making money from their cable package fees. They were making money from advertising. Of course, another thing here is that in cable, we had syndication of network shows that got people residuals. So there's a reason that anyone who worked on Seinfeld or, even shows like How I Met Your Mother or The Big Bang Theory, shows that went into syndication on cable, the people that wrote and acted on those shows get checks every time those shows re-air. This is the way that people in film and TV made money for a long time, and it was a way that people could afford to live if they weren't working for a bit. Of course, we don't have a model like that under streaming. So I've seen some people online comment that this is a way to, redo cable without having to pay residuals to writers and actors and people like that. And another thing that's come up recently is that a lot of the streamers are now, rather than residuals, they're thinking about paying via performance. So rather than the cable model, or even if people don't watch your shit, you're getting paid, a model that some of the streamers are talking about now is something where you might get some upfront money to make your show, but then you're only paid relative to the amount of people that watch the thing. So yeah, but that was that Bessner tweet. Now, there's another tweet, and this is much simpler, from Brendan Gallagher in response to the discussing film headline. It just said again, this does not operate like cable. So I think it's important when we talk about these things to not get caught up in thinking that they are simply replicating cable. Because it's a different thing, and in some cases, you might say it's a worse thing. God, again, we're not a breaking news show, but as we're having this discussion, Netflix has also just signed a 3-year deal with the National Football League to stream the 2024 Christmas Day NFL games live and exclusively on its platform.
Whoa.
That's huge. For those who don't know, NFL football is the most watched thing. It's the most watched thing.
That's like a fencing in of the prairie thing to me. I can this Christmas football game being paywalled like that. Interesting.
Yeah, I mean there's a lot of people in the United States of America who are not gonna not watch the NFL on Christmas.
Yeah, I'm thinking of my boomer parents who don't use the internet at all. That's really gonna upset them.
Yeah, that's gonna upset a lot of people. So, things are afoot, and I think it's especially, I don't want to say troubling or whatever, but it just feels like more and more of our culture is being moved to a few of these. And you could see again, this is me maybe doing a bit of the fallacious thing of comparing this to cable. But it does remind you a little bit of what we saw happen with rideshare apps, where for a few years it was so cheap to go anywhere because we were able to use Uber or Lyft. It dismantled the taxi industry. It undercut. I think we think about it as well. I think people often talk about how Uber and Lyft undercut and dismantled the traditional taxi industry. Another thing it undercut was public transportation. I think less and less people started using public transportation because of those apps. Because less people were using public transportation, these things lost funding. So now, as Uber and Lyft are as expensive, if not more expensive than traditional taxis, we're now left without a solid taxi industry or in many cities, a viable public transportation system. And, seeing something similar now with all of our entertainment being consolidated in a few different sources. Now, Bingo Barra 18, longtime, friend, sometimes frenemy of the show, says, stop the streaming addiction, go out. So something I've been thinking about is, someone left a comment. Actually, I won't say their name because I don't know if they, it's from a private space, but someone asked a question on our Discord server, which you could be a part of if you want. It was basically like, as things get worse in digital spaces, are we going to go back to the real world? And my thought or response there, this is a little off the cuff. I'm curious what people think. But is it not the case that as our lives, the way we're entertained and the way we interact with each other has moved into corporatized digital spaces, that just like we talked about public transportation and the taxi industry, hasn't that undermined public space? Hasn't that dismantled many of the real world spaces we used to spend time in? So is it the case that we've given so much of our lives, our attention, and our culture to corporatized digital space that if we do want to then say, never mind, we want to go back to the real world, well, what's left? Does that idea make sense, Henry? Am I just
Yeah,
stoned?
it's
I'm not
something
stoned, but
I've been wondering about because since like 2019-ish, I sort of stepped off being as present on places like Facebook, just to get away from like political grievance stuff. But I mean, I still use Facebook Messenger to stay in contact with people, and I mean, I use my Instagram as well. But I wonder about like these zombie facets of the internet that are like crucial communications spaces within my life, and like how would I detach from them, or if like the grid goes down, what locally do I have resource wise?
yeah. I mean, I see people, and Dr. Clownick has said, what public space? Because, a thing that, and someone said there are no ads in the real world. I think you're being ironic. Avocado Loco said, Amazon, the mall, department stores, Uber Eats, restaurants, streaming, the movies. But yeah, there's less and less public spaces. There's less and less movie theaters. There's less and less restaurants, coffee shops. And what there's especially less of is non-corporatized public spaces. Callie Z says, getting my kid to interact with other kids in the neighborhood has been impossible. All his friends live in other neighborhoods, so they play together online. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing you hear as well, that a lot of younger kids and stuff like that just kind of hang out digitally.
I do feel, I don't know. I do feel more people are like gaming and stuff in the digital space in a way where like not even like a decade ago, like I find it easier to have like a casual connection with coworkers in that sense, a lot easier than it was in the past. But it is a lot of like playing video games on Discord and stuff like that, not so much going out to a third space.
Yeah, I mean, I was even thinking recently about making friends, and in terms of, I'll speak to my own experience. I've lived in the city of Los Angeles now for full time for 7 years, on and off for 9 years. But basically, every friend I've made here, I've made either via the comedy and improv community. But even then, it was a pay for play thing. Like, I met people because I paid to do classes and I had the time and the resources to perform in and do a lot of shows. And even then, met hundreds of people, and there's like 3 of them who are good friends now. And another place I met friends is playing music. Shockingly, a couple of those people are my good friends now I met via Craigslist. But, but it's hard because those are, I'm lucky enough to play music and be good enough at it where people want to hang out and play with me. So I've met people that way, and we already have the shared interest of liking music. I had the, funds to pay for like improv and sketch classes and be a part of that community. Again, a community that you do kind of have to pay for. But outside of that, where do you meet people? And for most of us these days, we work remotely anyways. So I don't know. Sean Harriman said EA just announced trying to put targeted ads in their games and shitification everywhere. I'm actually shocked that that is just happening now. I would think, and Henry, you know more about gaming than I do.
If
Do
it's
you have any
if
sense
it's
of why
if it's like
it hasn't
custom,
been the case longer?
I was about to say, I think there's instances of racing games that have like advertising in them, but like not targeted in the sense that it's specific to the player. So if that's kind of like the new complication there, that does sound very interesting. EA does sound like the company that would go for that.
Yeah. Royale said Craigslist is good for making friends. Royale, to be clear, Craigslist has worked for me when I was starting a band and doing posts for people, and you get a lot of insane responses as well. So it's not a foolproof method by any means.
To the earlier point I was making too about feeling like it is easier to make like online friends and such, that also speaks to me, at least, like that we have the technology guiding us there, or the technology is enabling us to like make those spaces a priority.
Yeah. Well, and it's even harder though, because for me, the platform where over the years I've made the most online friends has been Twitter. I'll never call it X because I'm not a cop. But, to use the word shitification again, it's gotten so bad that a lot of friends I had via that platform have left. The functionality of that application is so bad that I can't even find people. There's times where I want to like send a DM or say something to a friend on there, and if I type in their username, all you see is a bunch of blue checks, and I can't find that person because you basically have to type in their exact username.
Yeah.
Actually, and Google sucks now too, but it's easier to find friends sometimes on Twitter by Googling them than searching on Twitter/X's internal search function. So
when I was doing the pre-pro for today, I found that Variety article on the merging streamers faster through Twitter than through Google, and that just felt very depressing to me.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's the thing too. It's like we've again, this is not a new thought. This is not an original thought. It's just describing a thing we've all experienced and we all know. But we let a lot of friendships and relationships become dependent on privately owned, profit-seeking applications in digital spaces. And those digital spaces are then able to just pull the rug out from under us, and there's not really a lot we can do. And turning our attention so much to those spaces has seemingly undermined the existence of real spaces. So, again, thanks for being here. It's Wisecrack Live. We're about at the halfway point right now. Thanks for hanging out with us. Please like, subscribe, leave some comments in the chat. Consider being a member. Consider signing up for Patreon. Use your emotes if you got them. Shouts to all the green usernames. And, you can always be Lord of the Chat if you give memberships to other people, which is a fun thing to do. So there you go. Let's see. I want to look at what should we do next? Well, let's do this really quick as a transitionary thing. There's a tweet I saw today in the car as I was driving. I shouldn't have done this, guys, but it's a long drive to get here. I was sitting in a lot of red lights. I was trying to communicate with Henry about what we should talk about today on the stream and things of that nature. And I saw this tweet from Jonah Goldberg. Now, Jonah Goldberg is the editor-in-chief at The Dispatch, LA Times columnist, American Enterprise Institute fellow, someone who's been in the journalism world for a while, has a pretty large platform. And he did a post with that. What's the meme for the guy standing up? Is there a name for this particular meme, Henry?
I don't know the name of it, but I do know the original picture. The guy's like standing up to speak out against public utilities or public schooling. So it's actually supposed to be that it's very Dunning-Kruger in that he's standing up to confidently state something very wrong. But that context usually isn't assigned to this photo when it's used in meme form. People use it when they think they're speaking an unpopular truth.
Nice. Guys, some people want memberships in the chat. If you have money, give it. That sounds fun. Why not? So, and do we have this? Is this tweet pulled up? Awesome. So Jonah Goldberg says, the opinions of young people have no special moral weight. Indeed, the opinions of young people as a class are more likely to be wrong due to the fact that they are generally less informed than others and are more easily swayed by emotion, ignorance, and recency bias. It's a really bad take, I think. I'm curious what you all think. I think that's a historically bad take. I think it's a problematic take. I think it's a dangerous take. And I don't just think that because I'm Gen Z's number one ally. As everyone knows, I'm the oldest member of Gen Z. Yeah, Norman Rockwell, someone said that before.
Yeah, the painting is called Freedom of Speech by Norman Rockwell.
But I mean, I think this is interesting for a variety of reasons. It also taps into our most recent video, the one that came out Friday on the history of student protests, because, you know, if we look at the history of activism oriented around young people, they're often right. You know, the civil rights movement, largely organized and acted out by very young people. I think we forget because of how in the olden days, everyone looked older because they wore suits. Guys, Martin Luther King Jr. was not old. He was quite young when he died. Actually, I'm kind of curious how. Yeah, guys, when Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated, he was the same age I am now.
Fred Hampton was 21.
Yeah, I mean, so again, we think about all these people in history. And again, like if you look at the leaders of student protests against the Vietnam War, we look at anti-apartheid resistance, we look at people who have been anti a variety of wars and bad things, they often tend to be younger people. So the idea, and then let's not even think about politics. How about culture? You know, do we think about who's making, whether it be digital content, whether it be music, people that are creating cool things on TV, people that are creating, you know, exciting films? It's quite often younger people who are doing the more interesting things. You know, it's not like people are like, oh man, Chuck Lorre and Dick Wolf, Taylor Sheridan, fucking visionaries making art that changes our opinions. No, they're making shit for boomers to pass out to. They can be fun sometimes. But this idea too, like, you know, the opinions of young people are more likely to be wrong due to the fact they're generally less informed. I don't know if that's true.
Yeah, you can be old and not know things.
Yeah. And then you get more swayed by emotion, ignorance, and recency bias. I don't know. People seem pretty emotional at January 6th. You know? There's an Aristotle line that's on this. I'm wondering if I can find it.
Also, with age, you know, people become more entrenched or shackled to the status quo, depending on their position in the socioeconomic structure, and may develop reasons to defend bad things because they're profiting from them.
Yeah. And you know, this is something that Aristotle talked about. He definitely talked about it in the Nicomachean Ethics. Let me see Okay, so this is Aristotle said this thing where he said, for this reason, I'm not going to send where I'm reading this from right now because I Googled it to find the quote. I think I ended up on some weird conservative website. Trust me on this. Aristotle says, it's not appropriate for the young person to be a student of politics since the young are inexperienced in the actions of life. Well, these are the things about which politics speaks and from which it reasons. Also, since the young are apt to follow their impulses, they would hear such discourses without purpose or benefit, since their end is not knowing but action. And it makes no difference whether one is young in age or immature in character, for the deficiency doesn't come from the time, but from living in accord with feeling and following every impulse. For knowledge comes to such people without profit, as it does to those who lack self-restraint, but to those who keep their desires in proportion and act in that way, knowing about these things would be of a great benefit. So Aristotle says the young person is not quite ready to be a student of politics because they haven't had enough life experience. And part of what that means is young people, as he is thinking of them, shouldn't just learn about politics. They should have experience in life and living a political life. And I do think more so than ever, when we look at young people, there's so many young people these days, shout out to the homie Greta Thunberg, who do things politically, who engage in those actions such that they could learn about them. He does say that sometimes the young fall into impulsiveness without thinking things through. I think that's true. We see a lot of this in online discourse. But the most important thing Aristotle says here is it's not just age. Anyone who follows their impulses without thinking through things and engaging in a balance of thought and action could be like that. So I think that, to say that emotion, ignorance, and recency bias are just for the young and that a certain sort of wisdom comes through age is kind of like dumb, because this implies then that, it's friggin' Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi and who are some old Republicans. I want to make sure I'm saying it on both sides, that all these people have an equal weight in this sort of thing. I think it's just really dismissive as well, because I think starting with that sort of logic then allows you to undercut and dismiss the opinions of young people. This even connects back to the Bill Burr thing, right? We're weaving some threads here, and I'll tell you what I mean by that. Bill Burr and Bill Maher are both old. Bill Maher seems like someone who has his opinions grounded in things that he's thought for a lot of time and isn't open to rethinking them. And like Bill Burr points out, doesn't really do a lot except talk shit on TV. Bill Burr, however, seems like someone who is engaged in continuing to think and grow and be curious. Natural Phenomenon says, Wisecrack, I assume you mean me, are you smarter now than when you were 20? In some ways, yes. In some ways, yes. I would say I was more idealistic when I was 20. I think I had more hope when I was 20, which I think are good. I think I know more now, have more experience now. But when I was 20, it was a different era when I was 20. I think that young people, and I'm curious what Henry, what you might think about this. I do think young people now have more access to information than I would have had 19 years ago. And I feel like that makes a big difference. What do you think, Henry, about this question?
I feel like I internalized since I was 20 just like how to deal with like concepts in the adult world that like I only had 2 years experience with at 20. So, there's things I had to learn that I just never experienced until I was 18, and then from 18 to 20 like I was very unfamiliar with. I feel I'm smarter at those things now, but I don't know. I feel like I have the general kind of curiosity that's been there since I was 20. I feel very much the same age in a lot of ways outside of, learning how to, manage my bills and do job interviews.
Yeah.
I don't feel dumber than I was at 20, but I'd say I feel pretty consistent.
Yeah. Natural Phenomenon then says, does that not prove that kids can be wrong in a way that other people might not? Sure. I think that's true. I think the young could be wrong in ways that are specific to youth, but I think the old could be wrong in a way that is specific to age. And I think that it is important to not a priori decide that the opinions of the young are not valuable in a certain way that allows you to then just undercut and dismiss them. I think that what you see, and I'll only speak to American politics, is you see a large disregard for the opinions of young people has gotten us to where we are. Let's take one example, uh, the climate, right? Young people are overwhelmingly more concerned and more engaged in the fight against climate change and are engaged in a way that in most cases is backed by science. Older folks care less about this. Now, does that mean that we should dismiss the youth because they're more engaged in that? I don't know. I don't really think so. This another thing that makes me think of is there was a study years ago. I think this exists, and maybe I'm pulling it out of my ass. Well, no. So natural phenomena. I'm not saying that you say kids know nothing, but Jonah Goldberg says the opinions of young people have no special moral weight. Go ahead, Henry.
I would like to say that I guess I do feel. So when I'm saying I feel more efficient at figuring out adult stuff, I do feel there have been key adult decisions as far as choosing jobs or walking away from certain scenarios that were guided by like youthful idealism in deciding to say like fuck what like the older generation may have done or what the adult traditional knowledge would be in this scenario. And so I feel I grew smarter as a person, and I was kind of using sort of like youthful mindset that challenged the status quo rather than just like went along with it.
Yeah, friggin' A.
So like the smart
Um,
young person in me is what led to this intelligent older person.
yeah, and I think I guess the real question, and I got sidetracked a little bit, is the question of moral weight. And I actually do think that there is, with certain issues, I think there's a moral weight to the opinions of the young because they have to live here. You know what I mean? Like that young people have to
Yes.
deal with stuff. And certain issues, I think climate, I think issues around technology, young people understand these things better.
I
You
mean
know?
the whole reason the 40-hour work week in the past was made was to accommodate a nuclear family. It's like, hey, if this doesn't sustain a nuclear family anymore, we need to rethink this instead of just saying like this is tradition to uphold a 40-hour work week.
Yeah. The thing I was saying before, this reminds me of there's a thing people used to say, maybe it's a real study, maybe not, but it was something to the effect of most people as adults stop listening to new music around the age of like 27. So
Okay.
that, and you think about this, guys, think about what your parents listened to, right? And there is a sense that there's a certain point where we're kind of just like done learning about new stuff, consuming new culture, thinking differently. And I think that can be, obviously, it doesn't have like deleterious political effects, let's say, if people stop listening to new music when they're 27. But I think it signifies a lack of space for curiosity or thinking differently that is dangerous. And I think that, you know, for example, um, we got our buddy Chris Maverick in the chat, who's a little bit older than me, who's someone that I think of as very smart and very curious and has really good opinions. And I think one of the reasons he has really good opinions is because he's a curious, open-minded person, not someone who just thinks what he thought when he was younger. Sorry that I'm psychoanalyzing you on live stream, Chris. I hope that's okay. Dr. Clownick in the chat says we're about the same age. When we were 20, it was cool and smart to not care about things and say everyone involved in political debate is dumb, thanks to South Park and The Daily Show. For sure. Like people care more. I think a lot of, and when I see a lot of young folks right now, at least the kids on TikTok and stuff, they seem like they give a shit a little bit more. So, there you go. We still have time to get questions in. The back half of the show today, we're gonna do um some advice. So there's a few people came through on Twitter. A couple people hit us up at wisecracklive666@gmail.com. You can, I did a post on my Instagram stories for questions. I'm Michael __O_ Burns. So you can find me there, and I'm going to make sure I check in, see if there's any other questions. one last thing I wanted to look at from the old Twitter right now, and this is, I have this in the closing time segment, Henry, but I kind of want to look at it now. So something that went viral this week on Twitter in a pretty insane way. It's 5.5 million views. So a person named Mindy Iser, someone who I've read her writing before, has written for like Jacobin and some other, left-oriented publications. Posted a picture of a hospital bill. Has an account summary, has total charges, almost $51,000, insurance payments, $46,000, balance due not on payment plan, almost $4,457, and it shows that this person has a PPO, Blue Cross, Blue Shield insurance plan. Now, before we scroll down and look at some of the reactions, I'm curious in the chat, I'm curious, Henry, what is your reaction to seeing that a person who has insurance, who had some sort of surgery that, and it's not this person's job to let us know their personal medical information, but let's trust that this is a necessary procedure, that with insurance, after getting the surgery they needed, this person owes $5,000. How does that make you feel? And in the chat, let us know how that makes you feel, because I'm very curious.
It's expected, but still anxious. That's how it makes me feel. I know at this point too, people have said, don't you can negotiate medical debt. You can don't pay net medical debt. Just wait, negotiate it, wait for it to go to creditor, etc. But just still, the psychic damage of seeing that kind of bill, it's anxiety inducing no matter what. And honestly, I have probably a huge fear of incurring medical debt that I really wish I didn't have, but I live in the United States.
Yeah. And I will say as well, if you do have bad medical debt or you get bills, wait it out and try to not pay it. Recently, my wife kind of played that strategy because we're still paying off bills from the birth of our child, who was born 10 months ago. And she was able to get out of it. So this person tweets this, and when I see this, I think, oh, that sucks. That sucks that that's the thing that this person has to deal with. I assume this person isn't rich, and $5,000 is an ass ton of money. I mean, for a lot of people, even for people that make good money, sometimes after taxes and everything else, that's about what you get a month. For most of my adult life, my take home, not even for most of my recent adult life, when I've had an okay salary, that's like my take home. So that would be like a month of money. But you kind of like, here, I'm going to go to show more replies. And I don't know if these will pull up for you. There's one I saw that was particularly insane. But, yeah. Well, okay. I'll say this. It doesn't matter about the particulars, but a lot of the comments are like, I promise this person supports Hamas. Then leave. Abortions are expensive, I guess. Huh? Looks like a great deal. 92% of costs subsidized and actually have timely access to services. You're living the dream, yet still complaining like you're some kind of victim. Really? Having to pay 9% of a $50K bill? Here's one. This is okay, it's the one from Malcolm Nance. I'm also just sending this over on Telegram. So, first of all, Malcolm Nance, U.S. intelligence, 36 years, expert on terrorism, U.S. extremism, dead Russians, 5-time New York Times bestselling author, Navy senior chief, widower, Ukrainian legionnaire, 1.1 million followers. Malcolm Nance, an American hero, says, my late wife received the best care in the world at Penn. Ovarian cancer treatment wasn't elective and TRICARE paid 99%. Go fuck yourself and pay your goddamn bills, taker. His fucking wife died, and this is your take? Oh my fucking God. I just like, just the way that we talk about our lack of politics on this show. And we talk about our lack of politics because we often say we just think everyone should have a good life and everyone should just have some empathy. I just don't get why. What's up, Alley Cat Tails? Why would anyone have an impulse to see that someone else was struggling to pay a medical bill they're left with when insured and empathize with the insurance company, right? Like, why do we empathize with a profit-seeking company over an individual human being?
Oh,
And
Texas
this,
Sloopy makes the excellent point of blame your union supporter.
oh my God. Yeah. I mean, and there's this sense in which, like, and for those who are outside of America, I'm curious what you think here, but it's almost like Americans have this internalized sense where we think we don't deserve shit. So if we get anything, it's like, be grateful that you got anything. And we know the profits made by the healthcare industry. We know that there are millionaires and billionaires who are making profits off the healthcare industry. And yet, some of us will still have more empathy for those profit-seeking economic structures than we do individual people. And that freaks me out. So someone in the chat said, was he emphasizing with the insurance or commenting on the OP's distaste for paying a copay? I guess maybe it's both. I don't want to say, I don't want to project or say what anyone else is saying, but even the copay thing is like, why do we accept that as a normal thing? Why do we accept that? Because for example, I think I've spoken on this before. Since I added my wife and my daughter to my healthcare, so I get healthcare via work, but $800 a month out of my paycheck goes towards my part of that healthcare, right? So I'm already paying $800 a month on top of the contribution made by my employer to a health insurance company, such that when I still have to pay thousands of dollars, it's like, what are we doing? Like, what are we doing here? Is that really something like a good system? And I will flaunt some privilege here and say that I say this as someone who has lived in a country before. Yeah, someone brought this up in the chat. Blue Cross Blue Shield Association reported combined revenues of around $313 billion. So, I've lived in a country before that had subsidized national health care, and I've had situations where there wasn't a copay, and it's just tough. It's tough. Yeah, someone said blue checks were a mistake, but I'm a little bit of I'm going to say something that I hate when people say. I'm a bit of an empath. So it just makes me so sad when I see that people have that impulse when they respond to strangers about stuff like that. Let's do some advice. Let's do some advice, guys. We can do advice in chat, but I'm going to prioritize people who have written in. Oh, man, Eric, I hope that your wife is okay. That sounds very, very, very tough. Yeah. Okay. Good. No one from Blue Cross or Blue Shield is in the chat. That's very important to us. Let's see. Okay, so I'm going to start. We have some emails at wisecracklive666@gmail.com. First one is from Nathan. Now, in the chat, you're welcome to give advice too, but note that they didn't ask you. They asked us. So let's have some respect. Nathan said, I deeply miss school. For most of my 23 years alive, I've had a scholastic structure that provided meaning, community, and academic satisfaction. This relates to some of the stuff we were talking about before. Now that I've graduated from college, I've lost the only structure I know. If I had the money, I'd 100% go back to college and keep putting off getting a real-world job. I doubt any job will fulfill even a fraction of the youthfulness, excitement, and optimism that school provided, but it seems I have no choice but to transition. Do you have any advice on letting go of school and moving on? It's a great question. Now, I relate to this very much. I was someone who, from the age of 5 until the age of, let me see if I get this correct, about 33. I was either in school or worked at a school. And my life until the age of about 33, shouts to the age Jesus was when he died, everything in my life revolved around academic life and structure, the stuff Nathan's talking about. And it's something I found awesome. I loved having space to learn, to talk, to contemplate. I loved getting to be on campuses. I loved being in classrooms. I loved being in libraries. I loved the ritual of having certain times off every year. It was all great. And when I transitioned out of that at a very old age, in my 30s, I am Gen Z, but that happened in my 30s. I struggled with it quite a bit. Now, I know for me, a part of what helped me was getting used to the fact that there were things about working jobs in the quote unquote real world that, even if I don't say they were good, were how do I phrase this? I learned that sometimes you have a job and it doesn't matter and you don't have to care about it. And that was pretty cool because so much of what happens if you're in the academic world, you kind of intuitively or explicitly, you care about everything. Everything matters. And I remember my first full-time non-academic job, I was like, oh, none of this matters. Like, I'm just like moving widgets around in the widget factory and they're going to pay me for it. And when I leave, I don't have to think about this anymore. So that was nice. So I think there are ways in which you can embrace that side of things. Now, what that doesn't solve is the meaning and community and satisfaction you're talking about. So here, and I'll say a little bit, I'm curious what Henry thinks, I'm curious what people in the chat think. Here, we might need to be a little more creative because you're not going to be able to directly replicate the communal feeling you had in college outside of that setting. Thanks for being here. Like the stream. Here's stuff you can do. You can join or start a reading group or a book club. I know these things exist. I'm sure you could find something where you live. Worst case scenario, you may have to start something where even if it's meeting up once a week at a coffee shop or a bar to talk about a book everyone's reading, you're going to create some community that revolves around ideas. I know people that do this with movies. They have a film club where, once every other week or something, you meet up someplace, someone picks a film. It's a film they think is important. You watch it, you talk about it, stuff like that, right? You can take various classes at like community centers. I know there's a lot of like arts classes. There's evening classes, a lot of community colleges. You could pick a subject that you don't know a lot about, get into it that way. Depending on what you're into, there's music classes, there's acting classes, there's comedy classes, stuff like that could allow you to get into a community that way. And if that sort of thing isn't, available for you where you live, we had Ajay Chaudhary on from the Brooklyn Institute of Social Research a couple months ago. And, that's a group, the Brooklyn Institute of Social Research, that does classes and they meet, some of them meet online, some of them meet in person, where, you can do a class with people on interesting subjects. And there's other places that do that as well. And I think that's advantageous to some of the sort of online classes you might get where you just pay to watch a bunch of videos and not interact with humans. So those are some ideas that I would have. Henry, do you have anything to add for Nathan?
Did Nathan state their employment situation post school?
Let's see.
Because you bring up.
I don't think Nathan did.
Okay. Because you bring up a good point about figuring out to what degree does work care or does your job care? If you're fresh out of school, and like for instance, you're gonna be missing a sense of purpose. Your classes were telling you what to do. You had your passion. You had your study. Don't immediately just like attach that to a job. I can understand if your job's in your major and it's in line with what you want to do, but if you do just have a job for paying the bills and stuff, don't overinvest in it. And I don't mean be bad at the job, but like as someone who's had to dip in and out of like part-time working customer service while pursuing creative work, I've just seen the case too many times where there's like a 19 or 20-year-old who stays at like the first job they had because they're like really passionate. Like they're over investing passion into a customer service job that's just going to run them bitter. And you can kind of see in real time the ways, um, misplaced passion or misplaced purpose getting ignored or rebutted time and time again by bad management is just going to make someone kind of angry and bitter way too early. So learn to detach from a job in that sense, or when to recognize when your job is doing that to you. You want your sense of purpose to be more towards like what you want to do, what you want to create. Burns was talking about finding hobby groups. I definitely say go to local cafes and spots that you can hang out at, see what's going on like in a community sense, as far as like are there like events you can go to that are like drinking draws, open mics. Do you do any kind of do you have any hobbies as far as like do you play an instrument, do you work a camera, do you ever go out and just like photograph a place, you ever go to any live shows, any music events? It's going to be a matter of just like experimenting with that stuff. But like the big thing you want to avoid though is that thing I've seen too many times where somebody overinvests in the wrong job and like their youthful kind of passion for like wanting to do the thing just gets totally burnt out.
Yeah, I mean, as we talked about in our video on retirement, get a lazy girl job or start an OnlyFans. But Nathan, hopefully that was helpful. Feel free to follow up. We have another email from Eric. We love Eric. Eric says, for my entire adult life, I've chased the hustle. Now in my 40s, my identity is basically my career. I think this is a related question, which is now in flux. Feels bad. What do I do? Again, something I can relate to for a little bit because I feel like I invested half my life in a certain career trajectory, which then went away, and I had to kind of figure out what to do. This is a really practical thing. There was a book I read. It was called something like Designing Your Life or Designing Your Career. It's a book that I think some Stanford professors wrote, which is really interesting, and it's kind of hokey, but it was a book that was sort of like figure out what you're interested in and then figure out ways to extrapolate such that you could potentially find career or life stuff to do that'll make you non-miserable. So, and I can look that up and see if that was the right book or something. But I think the career thing is tough because we are, for many years of our life, taught and encouraged to orient our lives specifically around our careers. We're taught to say, we meet someone, what do you do? And it's like, I am this. I am a lawyer. I am a waiter. I am a bus driver. I'm fundamentally identifying with this thing. And I think we have to detach from that. And sometimes when we spend so much time working on a career, we forget what we are outside of that. And often the only things we are outside of our career are patterns of consumption. So what do I do when I'm not working? I consume television. I consume food from restaurants. I go shopping. These things that are still tied into patterns of consumption that create the need for the capital we get from our job and this sort of cycle of acquisition and consumption. So I think it's important to find a thing that you do in your life that is not consumptive but is creative. Now, not everyone's a musician or a filmmaker or a writer or whatever, but you can find something that
Just
you do.
doodle sketches.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, even like, this is silly, but like, I have a good friend who was disappointed with his career, a thing he worked at a long time. And while he was in the state of disappointment, he started scuba diving and he got really into it. And he got scuba certified. And then he started taking community college classes that were extremely cheap or free on oceanography and marine biology. And then he did some part-time work for like a boat store. And all that's to be said, over the course of a few years, that person now has a new career and works on boats. And he did something very different and kind of like academic before, but it was because he gave himself the space to explore some new things. Now, we can often explore new things that we might not be interested in, but we can give ourselves the space to do it. But I guess it's like giving yourself the permission to explore new things, giving yourself the permission to let things be a part of your identity that are not tied to the making of money or the consumption of things using the money that you have made. So that's
Yeah.
my thoughts on that one.
A good thing about having a creative hobby, even if you're not making money off of it, is it gives you a sense of like, oh yeah, I can make tangible things. I can tangibly like do something with my body and create something, and that just kind of like leaks over into other facets of your life over time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Um, and there's sometimes ways that you can find, creative stuff to do that will be satisfying. And maybe eventually you can make a little money off of it, but that shouldn't be the goal. It should be a side product, maybe. And then, you also mentioned your career being in flux. It's a hard one because we need money to survive. All I will say is, and this is going to be kind of like bullshitty. This is going to sound bullshitty. If someone said this to me, I would be like, oh, fuck you. But you can be surprised how paths open up to find new stuff to do if you are open-minded and curious and slightly assertive. So, and maybe change out of the khakis, Right. So we have another question from Callie or Kaylee. It says, how do you deal with the burden? And this is a heavier one. How do you deal with the burden of existential pain, the horror of our American Western white supremacist imperial society, and cope with guilt and sadness at the individual level? Still working on trauma, trying to live by day. And if it's an art, how can I feel good about making art inside this capitalist hellscape? I think there's some similarity in all these questions. The way I read this is, how can I live a life where I am aware of some of the horrors of existence without being so burdened and overwhelmed that I can't live my own life? Now, we are filming a video today in this room that's going to come out in a couple weeks. It's kind of on this question. I was motivated by some dumb articles and a weird Trump tweet that said things like woke people are miserable and there's no joy on the left. But one thing we explore in this video is this idea that to be a curious, open-minded, philosophical person often means critically engaging with reality, even when it's not pleasant, and even when that critical engagement leads us to see some harsh truths. Now, Plato's Republic, the famous allegory of the cave. In the allegory of the cave, there's a bunch of people that are living a life of shadows and bullshit and fake stuff. A guy gets out of the cave. He's overwhelmed by the light. What is the light? It's truth, it's reality, it's things as they are. After experiencing this, he goes back down in the cave to be like, oh, my dogs. It's not, this is crap. There's things they're better, they're different. But what do the people in the cave do? They want to kill him. Now, the point of that is seeking truth, seeking wisdom, trying to understand the world as it really is good, but it's also hard. Might not make you popular. Of course, Plato writes the Republic after Athens kills Socrates. Socrates is the person that leaves the cave. Socrates is the person that goes back to try to share wisdom, and they fucking kill him. So, not that they're going to try to kill you or anyone, but there is a joy that can come in seeking truth and trying to know the world as it really is. And this is something we get into the video. I don't want to spoil it. But in the video, I'm going to talk about the distinction between happiness and satisfaction drawn by a philosopher I like named Alain Badiou. And what Badiou says is satisfaction is something that's sold to us by kind of like self-helpy brands and shit like that. And satisfaction often means being satisfied with things as they are. Finding my place in the world as it is, finding modes of consumption that work with the world as it is. But that's not happiness. Happiness is having experiences that open our eyes to the possibility that things could be otherwise, and reality can often transcend, expand, go beyond what we think is possible. Now, doesn't mean that that's always going to make us feel good, doesn't mean that people around us are going to dig that. But so I think it's important to note that. I also think that it's important to remember that We are people that exist inside of big systems, but we're also alive. And we're also going to die one day. And you, how do I phrase it this way? You are not making the world a better place by not giving yourself permission to feel joy. Right? If
Yeah.
it's like if I were to hypothetically take a little drugs and go to a concert, it's not like that evening I'm at the concert enjoying myself in a more, I guess, like hedonistic or imminent way. It's not like I'm making the world worse, and it's not like I'm not doing something I would be doing. Maybe I'm experiencing some joy in humanity, and maybe that joy I experience is refilling the tanks that helps me approach the world with a hopeful mindset. And I think when you say, and if it's art, how can I feel good about making art inside this capitalist hellscape? You don't need to make art that's political. You don't need to make art that's successful. But if you make art that feels good and true to who you are, another person might also see themselves reflected in that. And the thing about art, right, is if I listen to a really good song or watch a really good movie or read a really good book, the thing that's impactful is often that feeling of, oh, I'm not alone in this world. Someone else thinks that way. Someone else has had that feeling. And that art makes me feel more human. And if we don't feel more human, we end up being the type of blue check psychopaths that shame a woman for being upset about a hospital bill. I think that we've quoted this before in videos. I've probably said it on the stream. Film critic Roger Ebert famously said, films are machines for the making of empathy. And I think we could apply that to art in general.
Yeah,
So if you make, yeah, go ahead, Emery.
it's like David Foster Wallace with the like fictions for communicating what makes us human, that like we're sharing these feelings, right? Like we can agree upon that.
Yeah. So it's like if you make art and all it does is make you feel more human and empathetic, it's already worth it. If it makes someone else feel that, even better.
Yeah, and even if you're recognizing you're within a capitalist hellscape, consider that you're articulating a frustration or a critique of said capitalist hellscape. It doesn't necessarily have to be that you're making things for the machine. Like, make things that voice your frustrations with the machine.
Yeah.
Just going off of what Burns was saying, definitely recognize the extent of your agency within the larger systems you're living in. You don't have to like solve all the problems of the world. That's an immense burden for anyone to kind of like shoulder on themselves. It will drive you crazy. And even just recognizing you're within like a country like America, recognize that like America lies to itself all the time. Like the white supremacists want you to think they're white supremacists, but there was there were natives in this country long before. I think about like myself being mixed race, and it always kind of makes me crack a smile because like on paper that was illegal in the 1950s, and that's the stupidest thing to me because like people are going to do what they want to do. Like don't let the emperor fool you. The mountains are tall, the emperor is far.
Ooh, that was great. Let's look. There's a question we got on Twitter from Alex. It says, college professor and semi-professional ranter here. Hello, friend. Some advice for making long stretches of talking easier for others to listen to would be appreciated. My evals are pretty good. People don't usually tune out when I'm speaking, but I'm always looking to improve. Thanks. So, some of you are educators. We know our boy Maverick is a pro in this area, but a hard thing about being a college professor is you have to stand in front of a room of people and talk a lot. And often these are people that have other classes, they're tired, they're hungover, they have jobs, they're stressed out. How do you talk in a way that is easy for them to listen to? How do you talk in a way that's engaging? Well, I know for me, and this person brings up their evals. I think if you don't know this, when you teach at college, every semester you get evaluated by your students, which is kind of like a pilot being evaluated by the bags, but I'm kidding. But sometimes, I mean, I would get evals sometimes that would say things like, class would be better if he didn't try to be funny all the time or something like that. And it was like, oh, well, fuck you then. No, but I don't know. I think you just have to figure out how can you be yourself? What are elements of yourself that you can share? Because students, I think, get a kick sometimes out of knowing that you're a person. So what of your personhood can play into what you're teaching? I don't know what subject Alex teaches, but whether it's talking about meals that you're making, whether it's relating things to a show or a movie that you've watched recently, I think that's helpful. I think anytime you can, to the best of your ability, relate the content that you're teaching to the experiences of students, I know that can help. So the last time I was teaching regularly, it was at a school that was basically like a women's college for first generation college students. And most of my students were Latino women who were either first generation Americans or had emigrated to America at some point in their life. So people that I have very little in common with. And a thing I had to realize in that job was like, okay, for me to do a better job of teaching, I need to learn more about these students and learn more about what are their lives like, what do they care about, what are their concerns. So I would try to work things into class that would let them speak. And I do think it's important as well to, when you talk about long stretches of talking, a great way to break up long stretches of talking is find ways to get students to speak. And I always found that if you make a student feel like, hey, you say something smart right now, they're going to get freaked out. But if you're kind of like, what do you think of this? What's something that's been going on with you recently? I would often do things where like at least one day a week in class, this sounds kind of corny, would have some like discussion topic. But I remember even figuring out like, oh, it's everyone watching. And I was surprised. I remember a bunch of these students, like 19-year-olds, from East and South Los Angeles being like, oh, I watch Buffy. And I was like, you guys watch Buffy the Vampire Slayer? That's an old person show. So yeah, that would be my advice there. Chris Maverick has some good stuff he's saying right now. Alex is here. Alex, thank you so much. Alex teaches English with a splash of history, psychology, and philosophy. Yeah, so I don't know. Alex, or Blue Phoenix, I wonder if, yeah, a way to do that is just think about, and I don't know what you're reading or what you're teaching, but like, how do those things relate to the lives of your students, and how can you bring them into the discussion in a way that makes things feel more conversational? But it also sounds like you're already a really good teacher. And it's one of those ironies where you're probably already a fantastic teacher, but you actually want to keep getting better, which is why you're a good teacher. Where the irony is the person that wouldn't ask this question is the person that probably needs to ask it, But yeah, I think that's what I got there. And I know there's other educators in the chat, so feel free to jump in so that Alex can see what you have to say. Let's see. I want to. Where was this at? There's one other question I wanted to get to that someone asked on Twitter, which is, how would you hide a body? Please respond quickly. I'll tell you what I would think about doing, and I don't know if this is a good idea or not. I feel like my thought would be, if I have to hide a body, I'm thinking ocean, and I don't know how much of this would work. I'm thinking if I could. Well, I guess, do you want to hide it or dispose of it?
Yeah, like, do
dispose
I
of
have
it-
to retrieve it after a time, or
Yeah. God, because if I just want to hide it, then you got to put it in a fridge or a freezer.
I mean, just put a wig and aviators on it.
Yeah, you could do that. I'm probably going deep freezer, putting it at the bottom, stacking a bunch of stuff over it. Something like that. And if I'm trying to dispose of it, I'm trying to figure out how I get on a boat, getting as far offshore as possible, trying to find an area with sharks, something like that. This is not legal advice. This is all parody. But I don't know. I do think it's one of those things where we watch TV shows and movies and we think that like we could do this, but I think it would be really hard. Bodies are big, they're heavy, they stand out.
A lot of crimes do go unsolved in real life.
Yeah. So I don't know. I would say maybe just confess. Because you're probably getting caught anyway. So I would say just confess.
Like considering the close rate of actual police cases, you probably would be better to not try a weird convoluted plot that gets your thumbprints and hair everywhere and just leave that body where it is.
Yeah. A great question. We still, proof that we'll at least try to answer anything. And if anyone's in, we have an AMA channel on Discord, so feel free to jump on the Discord if you are a member of our Patreon. Feel free to sign up, get a green username on here. We love gifting. Love giving them to people. Friday is going to be exciting, guys. We have Helen, our friend Helen Flourish, is going to be on the channel. And Helen is hosting a video on Taylor Swift and political propaganda. So get ready for that one. And Swifties, it's blame Helen.
We have some fun comments to look at Monday.
Yeah, the Swifties are maybe I'll see if Helen can come on Monday or Wednesday next week and talk about it. But comment Helen. This has nothing to do with me. I was off the week that they filmed that. I was so glad too. I was like, guys, this video sounds great. I do not want this smoke. I just don't want this smoke, guys. Natural phenomenon. You have a great day. But it should be exciting. So set a reminder, 10 a.m. on Friday. Please watch it. Please leave comments, things like that. A reminder as well, we're only 4 weeks away from Wisecrack's 10th birthday on June 9th, 69. But we're probably going to celebrate it on June 10th because 669 is a Sunday.
It's June 3rd, a Monday. That's my birthday.
Oh my God. Well, you should take a break that week. Unless you want to be celebrated on stream by others. So that's kind of up to you. Let's see if there's anything else that came in we want to get into. I'm checking the Instagram one last time to see if any questions came through. The only one that came through is one I'm not going to respond to on here.
Did we get an inappropriate question?
No, it's more like a personal-ish thing, I guess, or just something that doesn't necessitate an on-camera thing. Fun GPT, I might try to do that, genuinely. Yeah. So we'll see how the Swiftie video does. If you have, you know what? Okay, we got one more question. So we're gonna look into this before we go. From Emily, it says, "Hey Wisecrack, any advice on finding the confidence to ask what you're worth in a gig job? I work in theater. Recently did a job where I did the calculations. It's only paid $7.63 an hour. In the arts, it's hard to get out of the mindset of how lucky I should be to work at all. And I'm getting paid in experience as a young professional, especially when I'm working for nonprofits. I have a hard time asking for more money, even though I should. How do I figure out how much money I should be asking for? And how do I find the confidence to ask for that, waiting for my chance to join the revolution as a commie super soldier?" That's a great question, I think. And I think for anyone who's worked in the arts, who's worked in nonprofits, who's worked in a field where you get to like do your creative thing, it can be so hard to, get what you're worth or ask for money or whatever. So, did you have thoughts on this one, Henry? As someone who
whatever you think your hourly W-2 rate would be ask for more than that. Consider that you don't have benefits, you don't have taxes being pulled out, you don't have long-term stability. So at minimum, if you're making less than what like a W-2 position for the same work would be, ask for more. And like, don't feel like you're being greedy. Like, people have to talk to contractors all the time. They're used to like contractors asking and going back and forth on negotiations and stuff. They want you to be timid. Most of the time, you'll get what you ask for if you just ask for it. But definitely, yeah, if you only came out with like 725, you need to be considering your hours more, because yeah, you don't have the security of a W-2 employee. So definitely be asking for more, and don't be afraid of asking for more.
Yeah, I totally get this, Emily, because most of the jobs I've done have been things where I felt bad asking for more, and it's something I didn't learn how to do till well into my adult life. So I would just say, um, you're always allowed to ask for more. You can do it in a way that's respectful. You know, especially if you like the people you work with. I think there's just ways to say like, "Hey, I really like this work. However, with the amount of hours I'm working, um, it's only coming to this amount, and I really want to be able to." And there's a way to frame it to be like political or like strategic, where you can just say, "I love the work I'm doing here. I want to be able to keep doing it. However, for me to really justify that, I need to get a higher rate. So I wanted to have a conversation about that." And then make sure that whatever you think you need or you want, ask for a little bit more, because whatever you say, they're going to come try to meet you halfway. So you always go further. Don't ask for the actual number you want. And I struggle with this so hard. Ask for a little bit more. So, you know, and Erica has some theater advice in the chat. So I don't know if you're still watching, Emily, but you can check it out there. Hey, Hickey said, just walked back to the conversation. Did you answer if the Spotify podcast going to be new, different stuff than YouTube? No, for right now, right off the rip, Spotify is going to be the same content. The advantage of it for us is like, there's a lot of people that don't watch YouTube. So it's a way for us to get this stuff out there for those folks. And then the other advantages for some of you all who have told me before, you listen to episodes or things like that when you're driving or doing other stuff. It will give you a way to, you can still watch video on it, but also just listen to videos or things like that if you're doing something else. So that's what we're doing. I think eventually, knock on wood, we'll be able to use it as a space to try some other stuff, maybe launch some other things. So that's the hope there. But we'll let you know when it comes out. So yeah, some good advice there. I like how we're all helping out, you know, people helping people. We love it. Chetu, I'm so sorry. Yeah, turn on notifications. There is a way to do notifications so you hear about the streams. I think you have to click. I'm going to see if I can do it. It probably won't let me do it. Yeah, but it's like you have to do it. Yeah, I can't see because I'm like on the page as us.
Yeah, Eric Granada brings up a nice point. He says, I lost half my clients, but the ones who stayed were the ones who valued me, and I wound up with more for less work. Like, yeah, if you're asking for more and you're being realistic and you're definitely like fair within like, you know, what you're paying me is about the experience you're getting, and the employer doesn't recognize that, they may just be out of their experience and not know what they're asking for, and it may save you a lot of time not working with them because they may be a troubled communicator.
Yeah. Well, that's great. Well, thank you so much for the question today, guys. The questions. We really appreciate them. Please do hit us up if you have questions in the future. wisecracklive666@gmail.com. You know, maybe we'll make it a regular segment. Let us know in the chat. Did you like that? Did we enjoy? Do we enjoy doing Q&A? Do we enjoy advice questions? I don't know.
Talk with us more.
And FunGPT says, so are all YouTubers changing thumbnails and titles periodically to get more views? Everyone's just trying to survive and game the system. It's harder than ever to get views. So there you go. And Jeff, that's a really kind comment. So thank you so much. Callie Z notes that notifications are delayed even if you sign up for them. Yeah, I mean, if you never want to miss a stream, you can set a reminder in your Google Calendar or whatever. Just let you know at 10 a.m. Pacific, wherever you're at, we'll be live. We always try to post about it on Twitter. And, you know, shameless plug, Shameless. But if you're on our Patreon, we always post reminders on our Discord server as well. But thanks for hanging out. We will be back on Monday. We have, make sure you check out the video on Friday. Swifties, blame Helen. In the meantime, have a really good week. We'll catch you soon.
Have a good weekend, y'all. See ya.